a Trump truth from this weekend. Happy Memorial Day to all, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country. It's in all caps. Through warped radical left minds who allowed 21 million people, 21 million people, in fact, to illegally enter our country, many of them being criminals, and the mentally insane through an open border that only an incompetent president would approve, and through judges who are on a mission to keep murderers, drug dealers, rapists, gang members, and released prisoners from all over the world in our country so that they can rob, murder, and rape again, all protected by these USA hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick, very dangerous for our country. I'm just not the kind of guy to do this in a Trump voice. I'm sorry, folks. Maybe I'll have time to practice my impression. Hopefully, the United States Supreme Court and other good and compassionate judges throughout the land will save us from the decisions of the monster who wants our country to go, the monsters who want our country to go to hell. But fear not, we have made great progress over the last 4 months, and America will soon be safe and great again. Happy Memorial Day, and God bless America. So, this is, in my opinion, an extension of the Trump autopen train of thought. I don't think Trump is very happy with the Biden administration right now. And I think that they're actively investigating who perpetrated the autopen, people potentially who may have sold pardons. Anita Dunn was accused by some other person. I'm not saying I accuse her necessarily. I'm just saying that that thing is heating up. People are not happy about the autopen situation. Now that it turned out that Joe Biden was clearly, in my opinion, already suffering from cancer. But we polled on this, and this might be a repeat the first set, but we're going to look at it again for people who haven't seen it. Again, this is just absolutely blowing up on YouTube, which is super cool. Thanks, everybody. But the crosstabs for this one show some stunning signals. 72% say that the cover up of Biden's decline was a serious scandal. If former President Joe Biden had been elected again in 2024, would he have been mentally and physically capable of serving another 4 years as president? And only 21% say yes. 60% say no. 18% say not sure. Now, what's interesting is that he kind of disappeared after the election. He really wasn't out there that much. And what's wild is even though most people knew he was cooked, we had 68% of people at least somewhat agreeing that Joe Biden's mental decline has become more apparent over the last 2 years. That was in 22. And yet there was always still this holdout in the mid 20s. It's down to 21% now. He would only 21% of people. And it's younger people. It's Hispanic voters. That's weird. 34% of Democrats. A third of Democrats are like, sure. And, they were ready to vote for this guy, a lot of them. But it was so clear. Remember, February 22, 66% wanted him to take a cognitive exam. So it's just crazy. The Jake Tappers out there of the world it's just absolutely stunning that they're out there trying to play this off, trying to show that they're good journalists now, and nobody's buying it. It's just absolutely crap. According to several recent news reports, when Joe Biden was president, members of his staff were aware of Biden's declining mental condition, but worked to conceal his condition from the public and members of Congress. How serious of a scandal is this? 48% very serious. That's more than the number of people who think it's very important for proof of election fraud to be released. So this is a big number. And another 24% somewhat, so that's 72%, 7 in 10 U.S. likely voters. The Democrats, I don't think people are not going to forget this. And this is a real drag that I don't think people have really, if Joe Biden is declining as bad as they say he is, we could be looking at a state funeral in the next 6 to 12 months. That's less than 2 years after they try to run this guy. I don't think that Democrat voters are going to be able to get that fully out of their heads. Now, obviously, to 70% of them will quickly be able to do it and probably already have. How likely is it that many major media journalists were aware of Joe Biden's declining mental condition but chose to help cover it up? This one's for you, Jake Tapper, and everybody else, every single person, except for Fox News and Newsmax and all the independent journalists. Literally everybody who was not on a show funded by pharmaceutical companies. Everybody covered it except for them. 42% very likely, 21% somewhat likely, 63% of voters think the media was covering up Joe Biden's declining mental condition knowingly. That's lying. Only 27% say it's not likely. They have completely lost all trust. This is why their ratings are absolutely tanking. Look at the Democrat numbers. 43% think it's likely that the media was covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. That's not Democrats talking about Fox News. That's Democrats talking about CNN and MSNBC. Now, some of them are probably happy they were covering it up. Man, look at the not at all likely number. Sorry to go back there. It's also 42% of Democrats who say not likely. Only 18% say not at all. That's what's wild. This is what blows my mind. This is why cognitive dissonance, in my opinion, has destroyed brains on the left. Because these people, a lot of them, most of them, saw his cognitive decline and yet still watched MSNBC and CNN where it was being covered up and now admit essentially that they were covering it up. Only 18% of Democrats say not at all likely. And they still continue to watch them, some of them. It's perverse. Which is closer to your opinion? Joe Biden's mental condition was not a problem when he was first elected president. 41%. Joe Biden's mental condition was already going downhill before he already got elected. 44%. That one wins by a plurality. So most voters think that Joe Biden was already cooked. Essentially, he was already sundowning, already, And what's wild is he had all these lids and vacations, and he was probably going to get chemotherapy and transfusions or whatever, and not actually just sleeping on the beach at Rehoboth. But look, only 56% of Democrats say that he was fine when elected. Now, this is retroactive. Like 90% of them probably thought he was fine in 2020, but back in the 2020 election. But that's what's so insidious about the mainstream media covering this garbage up. Okay. But here is the new one. 63% suspect Biden had cancer long before the diagnosis was announced. And this poll, let's look at the crosstabs. Was from May 19th to 21st. And I can tell you that was right after the announcement. So a lot of people may not have even heard the news before being polled on this topic. And so they're operating on next to zero information. And what I think this shows is incredible. The office of former President Joe Biden recently announced that Biden has aggressive prostate cancer that has spread to his bones. How likely is it that Biden has been suffering from prostate cancer since at least 2021? And again, all they got was this diagnosis right here, because this is all the media had too. The media wasn't out there asking pointed questions. Oh, have you started treatment yet? Where are you getting treatments? What is your course? How are you handling the infusions? Are there any reactions? Don't you think the media should be curious about that? I mean, seriously, I have a mom going through stage 4 cancer, and it's a big deal. It takes many, many trips over the course of the week. You're meeting with many doctors. Stuff breaks, you know? And obviously, he could get the best medical treatment on earth, but does anybody know that he's getting it? Are they just taking still everything coming out of the Biden administration, the former Biden administration, at face value? Because voters aren't. 43% say it's very likely he already had cancer since at least 2021. saying that this sudden diagnosis story is believed by essentially nobody. Another 20% say somewhat likely. So that's 63%. And that number, if you've been following us, is really, 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 really common. It's essentially the number of people who think that the January 6th rise was a Fedsurrection, essentially the number of people who say that the DOJ is banana republic, essentially the number of people who say the media is the enemy of the people. It's yeah. If you take MAGA Republicans and independent thinking independents and add them with free thinking Democrats, you get to about 60 to 65% of the country that understands what's going on. Now, a lot of them say they're going to vote and they don't turn up because the Republicans have a low propensity to voter problem now. That's what happens when you get the working class. And that's what happens when you have Act Blue on the opposite side. But what I say, time and time again, I say it probably 5 times a week. Donald Trump's platform is more popular than Donald Trump is. And the institutions have destroyed trust. Nobody believes a word about Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis, except that he has cancer. Everybody's like, yeah, okay, that explains a lot. Only 9% of the electorate says it's not at all likely that Joe Biden didn't have cancer in 2021. Only 9%. So those are the people that literally believe that he got this like immediately out of nowhere. He was getting his PSA test every year and they didn't catch it, even though he has the best medical treatment ever. Is anybody subpoenaing Walter Reed Medical Center to find out what happened here? Only 11% of Democrats say not at all likely. Like, this is really bad. Like, embarrassing. They're going to keep doing it. That's the thing. Their trust is permanently gone. In 2023, White House physician Kevin O'Connor described Biden as a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old male who is fit to successfully execute the duties of presidency. Was this an honest medical assessment of Biden's health condition at the time? Well, he's a doctor. People trust medical professionals. So obviously, this doctor was correct. Oh, wait, no, he wasn't. 48% say no. A plurality, only 34% say yes. So only 1 in 3 US likely voters believe Joe Biden's own doctor about this. I mean, this is about the fact that he was medically fit to do the job. There will be ramifications for the Biden presidency, I think, for a decade or two. I'm not saying the Democrat voters are going to stop voting for ham sandwiches or just disappear. I'm just not saying that. But I'm saying that this is going to be a drag on their party because what they would need to put stuff like this in the rearview mirror is introspection, reflection, a new shift towards honesty, and quite frankly, new charismatic leaders that can make people forget this stuff. And they don't have any of that right now. Look, Democrats don't even believe Joe Biden's doctor by a majority, 46%. That's crazy. Wow. None of the independents do, 29%. It's incredible. And the 18 to 29-year-olds do, 38%, more than a lot of folks, but they're naive. That's wild. Self-ID liberals, 46%. Upper middle class, 44%. Graduate degrees, the most educated. This is an interesting education signal. The people who believe Joe Biden's doctor the most are graduate degrees, 43% a plurality to 39% who don't. And that's not because they're intelligent. It's not because they're extra schooling. It's because they've been invested in a system of credentials that benefits them. And so they believe it because it helps them. It's kind of perverse. How angry are you that the media didn't report more about Joe Biden's health problems before he became president? And what I can tell you, though, also here is that based on these numbers, Joe Biden has been resigned to the dustbin of history. Like, this is it. Nobody cares. These are not large numbers. Remember, we had 70% of voters angry at the level of waste, fraud and abuse. And now it's only 50% who are angry about Joe Biden and the media not reporting on him. That's just not a lot. They don't care. In the rear view mirror, although only 30% are not at all angry. Let's look at parties. Yeah, 33% of Democrats are angry. I guess that's something. But 41% are not at all angry. That number's kind of low. And Republicans aren't as angry as I would have thought. I guess they're kind of used to it. Independents are a wash. I don't know. It was a massive and crazy lie. And it's one of the reasons that Donald Trump is the president right now, because institutional trust was shattered because of the hoax media, basically the hoax-driven media. If you've learned something, please follow us at rasmussenreports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. And thanks for watching.